Welcome to another episode of Behind the Pixel. I'm your host, Joe. I typically write these intros to these episodes and then read them to make sure I sound more polished than I obviously am. I also edit the interview a lot for the same purpose. And I tried not to do that this time because I think it's the best way to introduce Erick, who would want it to feel organic and real. But also, I don't know how to sum up this conversation. This was the first time we spoke to each other, but we have a lot in common, and we hop from one topic to another and have tangential thoughts that are loosely related, but we see the thread throughout our conversation. And I think that's a true sign of friendship, when you can keep the thread going and see the bigger picture. You said you're a writer, but I know you as an artist, like a visual artist. So how do you describe yourself to people then?
I've described myself as a Renaissance man because I started my career as a model. I started modeling when I was 6 years old, and I got into acting too when I got a little bit older, and I've been in feature films. So I got to act across like Kristen Stewart and hang out with Carrie Elways.
Jeez. What movie? Would I have seen these movies, or were these indie movies?
JT Leroy was the one with Kristen Stewart, which is about the writer.
Okay.
And Carrie Elways and I were in a movie called Teen Lust, which is a pretty B movie, but it's got some big names in it.
Yeah. So you started acting. Did your parents get you into that, or? I mean, if you're 6.
Well, yeah, my parents. It was like the first paycheck I ever got is like $15, which is like $1 million to a 6-year-old. I bought nothing but junk and candy with it. Right. It was for a catalog, like, and they didn't invite me back because my feet were all crooked because I was 6 and I didn't know how to model. No one had ever coached me on this. We were like,
this 6-year-old is so unprofessional. We can't have him back. How dare he stand like that? Oh man, that's crazy.
I was heartbroken.
I had a future in Sears catalogs and LL Bean. I wanted to be in a canoe with Labrador retrievers.
I was going nuts in my trailer. I was throwing toys everywhere. It was insane. It was like I was playing with my needles and stuff, a little fake heroin. And, you know.
What was this catalog for?
I'm pretty sure it was Sears. It was just one of those paper catalogs. I was pretty proud of it, though. 6 years old.
Yeah.
It was like I was in acting and I, taking a bunch of art classes and growing up, and a ton of photography classes too. And I went to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do because I wanted to make money. So I majored in business for like first 3 years. And then I decided to be a writer. At which point my whole world collapsed.
Well, clearly, if you're going to school because you just want to make money and you're like, well, now I want to be a writer. Those two things don't line up currently. I just read on or heard on NPR that books sales dropped 25%, which isn't a surprising statistic over the course of the last year, but the threshold for what they consider good opening for a book is 100,000 books, and that's the top 1% of books as a whole, which to me is crazy because I don't know how old you are, but we seem to be close in age. Like in the 90s and stuff, like if you didn't sell like 1 million copies, it was a dud. And now it's the complete opposite.
The book is a side hustle.
Yeah. So what made you switch to want to be a writer? and decide to be struggling? Were you overweight and you wanted to starve yourself like
that
that?
it was actually it was kind of a hard story to tell. I just, like, my whole world just this one year in 2007 just came like crashing down. I'd been in school for 3 years. I didn't really know what I wanted. I was there kind of for the social experience. I completely switched up as a person, just trying on new personas. I was in a fraternity. I was, you know, trying on different hats, and then I think I drank too much, and I was on, like, antidepressants and smoking weed, and my toxicity levels hit that point where I became manic, and I kind
Mhm.
of saw the future, and I was like, this, like, what am I going to do? So I went and I took one of the Myers-Briggs personality tests
Yep.
with the career counselor, and
Mhm.
she's like, "You're a visionary. You can be like your top jobs would be like actor, uh, writer, or nurse." And I was like, uh, I actually decided I want to be a director at that point. I was like, well, let's take all of these good things and put them all in a big pile, and I want to direct film eventually.
And let's kick out the nurse portion of it because that's the only one that has a concrete paycheck with it.
Yeah, right. My dad is a nurse practitioner, and he's getting his PhD. He's the nurse in the family.
Well, that's cool. I did the same exact thing. I forget what my letters are. Like it's INTG or J or something. I forget what they are, but I had the same experience where um, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm working at a law firm and just kind of like working my way up, and it's nice, but completely wasting my time. And it's a total cultural disconnect between like what I see and what I believe in stuff versus like how they all just focus on dollars and cents. And it's so bizarre. So I took the same exact test and it was like, all right, so you can be a therapist, a writer, or a preacher. And I was like, okay, so the only thing that has a paycheck is a therapist. I guess I'm going to school for that. But I did the opposite of what you did. So I kind of like envy you for following that.
It's like it's a hard road, and yeah. So you went to school. You went back to school to be a therapist.
Yeah. And now I'm here talking to you about
Oh, okay.
writing and stuff. So
You're
I'm actually,
merging.
yeah, I'm an emotional support teacher,
Hey, that's
typically.
awesome.
But my wife had a baby, which is who is napping right now. So I stay home with her, and that's how I got hooked up with Sean and Kenny and Dylan, and now we're here doing this stuff while I watch the baby and she works. So yeah, it's crazy how things work out.
Like, I mean, for how for hundreds of years, like, professionalism has been so male driven. It's kind of nice to let our wives or our partners take the driver's seat, and support them the way that for so many years women had supported men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't feel emasculated at all. I feel empowered by that.
Yeah, it's weird how because of that um, subduing their nature, essentially of being an equal partner, it forced some women to become like drivers and career driven. And now she's got her master's, she teaches at a prep school, she makes a lot of money. And somehow that switch where you and I became, emotionally stable after some years of that manic and bipolar that I also relate to with at that age. Um, we became secure enough to be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm fine with staying home, but it is still strange when I go outside of like this circle of creative people and people that live a little differently. Um, Even like women are still not skeptical, but just look at me differently because I'm a stay-at-home dad. It's strange how it's that mindset has bled into the feminine psyche as well too.
We could probably go on about like the whole system of the situation, but what I think it boils down to is I read this book recently, or it was more of a lecture. It's about fixing your energetic, your aura. And in Western culture, like we're the only, like our religions in the West are the only ones where the man gave birth to the woman, because the woman has the womb. But for some reason, Adam is giving Eve his rib, which I don't understand where that metaphor comes from. Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I'm sure I've read about it. I was raised by very conservative religious parents as well too. Or I don't know if you were actually. I didn't.
Yeah, I was raised.
Okay, but you're
it's an easy assumption to make.
I know, especially since you know that story and like are familiar with it. So I'm sure I read about it at some point. It wasn't until like in my 20s I started really diving into like the origins of religion and books and stuff about Western Christianity focused religions. And I don't know what it is, but there always is that theme throughout the Bible specifically about male dominance. And if we look at it as just, another doctrine for controlling and subduing, women, slaves as well, and different other cultures, it kind of makes sense that that's what we would come up with, that, oh, we decided, yeah, we need women. We don't explain for what, we just know we need them, but we're the ones giving them the gift of life, So it would kind of like align with that. Here's this alpha hierarchy built in from God that you can't question, that men are the ones that gave you life,
This book also points to that, like while we're on the topic of religion, how the Western ideal of God being outside of ourselves, and like way the fuck out in heaven. Can I curse on here?
Fucking yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. Like has attributed to men being more absent, like the absenteeism of fathers in the home, because like the prayer that we say is, "My Father who is way the fuck out there."
I don't like, know that that's the exact translation of it, but I know what you mean.
Hallowed be thy name. Yeah. It's
God,
like
if you're out there like fucking somewhere, hallowed be thy name.
there we go. But yeah, and another thing, there's 3 things that popped out from this lecture series. Was we were the only ones that were kicked out of the garden. Like on the whole planet.
So is everyone, I don't know enough about Hindus or God, what else is out there? Or Buddhism enough. I mean, I've read Siddhartha and I've read other books like comparing Christianity to those religions and how there are more similarities than there are differences. Like, there's a good book by what's his first name? It's Wright. I don't think it's Richard Wright, but it might be Robert Wright, and it's called The Evolution of God, and it talks about how Islanders and Native Americans, we all came up with this idea of God and a higher being because that's how we explained phenomena like weather and rain and death and all this other stuff. But I don't know enough about like the origins or the subtle differences, because everything is trying more to bring us together rather than focus on the differences. So I don't know enough about how different we are, as a Western culture,
In the last couple of weeks, I've been highly contemplative of this concept of everything that's on the screen or in my dreams or in a book just being a blatant outright lie. And like writers using lies to tell the truth and metaphor, like I get that and stuff, but it's brought me a lot closer to reality.
And
And
what do you
and
mean
like
by like seeing everything on screens or whatever you're reading as a lie?
I tried to understand from the position of who's showing me, and then I tried to understand from the position of who's paying those people to show me,
Right.
and like where they want me. And I don't think that it's really about that. It's just the construct of our the paradigm of an imperial culture is deceiving people into doing something that would be good for them anyways. It doesn't necessarily justify the deception, because then you're like breaking eggs to make an omelet instead of making a vegan omelet, which would have been made with truth.
Isn't that kind of just or has that been like taught to us that because that's just the essence of people trying to convince each other that, I mean, you and I are both trying to convince each other of something, even just by conversing, we're trying to convey a persona, an idea, or an opinion. So that could be, I don't know if that's a learned thing, but I don't know if it's as sinister as those people that are paying you to get that idea out, because we kind of like gravitate towards each other that with similar ideas. Like, let's say this, like cryptocurrency in general. Sean and Kenny found me kind of and saw I gave them, some writing, and they were like, all right, you're good. And they kind of like let me go with it. And then I find people like you who have similar beliefs and ideas too. So I'm not normally as hopeful, but when someone else is like very skeptical, I somehow become the optimist of the conversation.
That's okay. That's okay. That's the nature of conversation.
Right. So yeah, but I understand your point that everyone is like we're all selling something to each other. Like I'm trying to sell you as an artist to other people, and sell you as a smart intellectual with your art,
Kane Mayfield called me an iconoclast the other day, and I had to look it up. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe a little bit. But going back to my career as an artist, like
right, that's where we started.
After I decided that I wanted to be a writer, I took a year off from school and I started getting back into my own studies and things that interested me. And I got into tarot, and I started seeing these amazing coincidences between the cards that I would leave out randomly and the events that would happen in my life. And then I started painting the cards and manifesting these events. And like that's like taking fire from the gods. It's like lightning in my palm. In fact, the first time I ever painted a tarot card, like there was torrential flooding, an incredible thunderstorm, and so that was that got me pretty much hooked on the manifestation process, using like subliminating myself, creating these alternate mirrors. And so the second metaphor I dug from was all I can say is my life is pretty plain. I like to watch the bottles gather rain. So I like drew a bunch of bottles, and then I moved into a party house, and we partied all the time. I had all these big parties, and there's bottles everywhere. And then I cleared that painting off of the bottles, and it was just an empty desk. And then I moved out. I moved to Austin for a while.
So how long have you known Dylan? Is that when you decided to team up with him when you moved to Austin?
No, I've known Dylan since high school. Like
Oh,
Dylan
okay.
and I were in academic decathlon together.
You nerds.
We were the
But
rock stars.
I would have been there with you guys.
We like when we were roommates when we went on trips, and we trashed a hotel room once, which is really funny. But in like a high school way with toilet paper, just like
Right.
toilet paper in the room. Like, haha, we're gonna steal toilet paper off the mate's cart.
We're gonna throw our blankets on the floor. You got to make the bed now.
Basically, so badass.
We unplugged the TV. Suck on that, Hotel Hilton, Paris.
Plug that shit back in. I just added to your workload. Rebellion.
Yo, Dylan, we're so punk right now, man. Can you believe it? We just trashed our first hotel room, man.
There was like levels in academic decathlon. There was like the salutatorian and the valedictorian, which we made like straight A's, and then there was the B kids. We were the C kids. Like we were grouped in by grades, and we were the kids that
then how did you get on it? That doesn't make any sense if you were the C kids.
they recruited us, and they're like, okay, well, like our teachers, the coaches were really smart. They're like, well, let's look at the high C kids first, and then they looked around at us, and they could see, I don't know if they looked into our reports, or like we were smart kids. We just we weren't focused. We didn't apply ourselves. I don't think we cared so much about grades. We cared about being social and barely make it in school because public schools don't.
Yeah. And now I'm a teacher. So this is
sorry.
At a public school, no less. But you're right. It's fucking hard to care about every student and encourage everyone. You kind of, our public school system is not set up how it should be. I'm teaching summer school right now, and there are maybe 9 or 10 kids in a classroom, and it is so much different, and there's actually possibly some learning happening because of how we have it set up. So no, you're right about school in general. It's people that are bored by school and the slow pace are usually smart kids that kind of just, we talk to, there's a gifted program we have at the school, and it's kids that have C's and B's, and it's because things came so naturally to them as kids that when they get to high school, they don't have the good work ethic to go along with what's needed.
In elementary in Canada, they would just put me in the library. I just go and do my own thing. Like, it was so easy.
Really? So like you were that intelligent?
Yeah.
Well, I guess
there was a few of us. There's and we all went on to do intelligent things too.
So go back to the writing thing. Then how does that work into like you writing where
the story
I have a theory. I have a theory as to like why more intelligent people gravitate towards writing, but I'd rather hear your thoughts on it first.
So like my story about how I became,
or why you gravitated towards it beyond just the test, because it's obvious that. So my theory is that people that like gravitate towards writing and arts and such are usually consumed with an idea or ideas plural that are beyond just, I don't know what other people worry about or think about, to be honest. But
I started transcribing my dreams.
Okay.
And making storyboards of my dreams first. And they were dramatically different from reality. So that's a mystery. And and I consider myself kind of a detective.
Like
I continued.
Encyclopedia Brown. Encyclopedia Brown. Do you
It
not know?
wasn't. No, that might be a little bit before my time. Like I've heard of Encyclopedia
Okay.
Brown, but I'm not familiar with
Okay.
the lore.
It's a big world building in Encyclopedia Brown. Sorry, I keep interrupting. You're having these great thoughts, and I'm making a joke about Encyclopedia Brown that you don't even understand.
Well, Encyclopedia. All right, is Encyclopedia Brown a cartoon character, or is it actually like the Encyclopedia?
No, he is just a smart preteen kid who solves mysteries. And that's and it was books that I read in the 90s that I thought you would have understood.
Fellow kids.
Yeah, exactly. But continue. You started transcribing your dreams.
I transcribed my dreams. I was just manic. There was a disconnect there within my toxicity that was like causing me to just go along with the flow of what everyone else was doing. And I didn't feel like everyone else. My first philosophical question, I was 8 years old. I remember asking it was, why am I me and they are them? Like I think it's a pretty heady question for an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, and I had similar thoughts like that, especially like at church outgoings, like to bring our upbringing back into it. I remember, I don't know how old I was, but I asked like one of those like youth pastors or something, that I forget what it was. It was just a simple question, but how do we know all of this is true? When we're talking about the Bible, his response was, that's a great question, and I'd love to talk to you about it further, but we got to get going. And I never got a response to that question. And that was, I think, my similar path to like what you said. I do think those ideas are complex, and there's that questioning that people that gravitate towards writing and the arts all have. We're questioning things and we don't fit in.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not feeling like I fit in with people with this general populace that was following what everybody else was doing. I felt like I was going to be maybe the person who's going to be the one that's like telling the people which way to go, or at least giving them a choice between left and right. And like when I was painting and throwing all these parties, excuse me, I created a magazine called Art Rag, and I republished it, like I redid it and I put it on my website. It's kind of like Art Rag 2.0, but like it was hugely community driven. And I was writing for it, and I was, throwing fashion shows and, hanging out with theater kids. So I was getting more like lead roles in theater projects. And it was really, it was an immersive experience with people who are different than with the creators and the writers. And I ended up hating like just how the magazine looked, which is one of the reasons I wrote Happy Man and redid Art Rag. But between that, like I spent many years modeling, photographing, and figuring out how to tell a story that people would be interested in. I'm still figuring it out.
I think that is what everyone's trying to figure out. But I had a conversation with a woman a few weeks ago, and we were talking about punk music and how she's older than I am. So she like grew up with Sex Pistols, punk, and I'm a little bit older than you. So I grew up with pop punk and like Blink-182 and Newfound Glory and that whole scene.
MXPX, NoFX.
Oh shit, yeah, of course. To give you some insight into how old I am, my first AIM Messenger screen name was MXPXJoe.
Nice. I'm glad I threw that in there.
Yeah, that was a perfect. So I was nervous to talk to her because I'm not that old school punk, and I don't believe in that purist mentality of, well, if it's not like original, then it's not true like punk or and with anything. I'm growing up in the 90s and 2000s, so like I want to like read authors and listen to music from my time period that I think should be appreciated. I appreciate all the historical background and what brought us to this point, but I still like want to be immersed in what's happening now. And so anytime I would like talk to someone that like grew up in that era of punk music, I'm always a little bit nervous. But she made the point, she was like, I don't even know what a punk is, because I would look at it as I'm kind of like a hippie punk where I just felt like I didn't fit in. And like that's kind of what being punk actually is. It's a bunch of misfits that don't feel like they belong in mainstream culture, where going to football games or being popular or just not having something intellectually stimulating to stay and just being surface, we don't fit in with that. So we all gravitate towards these things. Like with you, it's those theater kids and writing art rag. Mine was, the pop punk kids creating music and stuff like that. And I wonder if that is something that you think as well. It's just that idea of not fitting in what is being put out there by like mainstream culture.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong, like about I'm making up the statistic, but I imagine that about 70% of just imagining the humanity bell curve of intelligence is that we fall towards the more intelligent, like the most intelligent being, of course, the like, business moguls like, Zuckerberg and Gates and Musk and stuff. These guys are the most intelligent people on the planet, but we're skewed towards that side of the bell curve. Most people fall towards relating to each other on the basis of intelligence. Be like, oh, we're we both watch like Cops or something. sorry.
But I watch Cops. It's such an easy thing to get sucked into. It's just so bizarre, man. It's like,
I didn't mean to insult you, man.
It's fine. I know what you mean. It's lowbrow. It's a guilty pleasure, and it's. I mean, my parents grew up watching it. So.
It is like watching a Snickers bar on TV.
It is. It absolutely is.
It's got peanuts in it, but it's still a Snickers bar.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. So I understand it. Yeah, and I hope you're right about that bell curve and where we fall on it.
That's the nature of universe in like hermetic principles, is that we're all one, of course, but the nature of universe being dual, night and day, hot and cold. In hermetic philosophies, of course, there's more of we're looking at it from a two-dimensional way. It's more three-dimensional. There's not just hot and cold. Like there's other spectrums, but on the z-axis. But like we're kind of like smart and not
cops, watchers,
smart and cops. Like,
that's it.
If I'm gonna get political about cops and schools, I think that like what happens a lot in schools has a direct. It's the disproportional budget of like what we're doing to arm people with actual arms instead of arming them with words
and knowledge in general.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree with you 100%. And that's kind of how I was introduced to you. Like I started right when Dylan wrote the Behind the Pixel article about you. And so I started following you because I was like following everyone in the group. I didn't know shit about shit then. And you followed me back and you liked the thing that was pinned at the top of my Twitter feed. And it was a video of Killer Mike giving that speech when there were the riots in Atlanta after George Floyd, and there was another killing then too, and he got up there and just killed it, and he's one of my favorites, and you liked it, and I was like, all right, Eric and I are going to be friends.
He tweeted back at me because really Killer Mike changed my perspective. Like that song Reagan, that changed my perspective on like the whole system. I was like, that's one of the most powerful songs I've ever heard. And I tweeted at him saying that this changed my world. And so he retweeted it, and it was really nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I would have freaked out if he did that for me. Like he is, I think the first videos I saw of him were him angrily talking to a room of Black people. And he's spoken about this, of how he talks differently to white people and a room of Black people. And he was like heated, and people were in the audience were furious. I don't think it was Trayvon. It was slightly after that when I saw it. And
too many.
Yeah. He was yelling at them because all of them are like, well, what are we going to do? What are we doing? Like, we need to leave. We need to like start our own community and do all this other stuff. And he's like, everyone's talking about leaving, and we need to remove ourselves from this. But like, can you support yourself? Do you know how to farm? Do you know how to grow things? How are we going to dig wells to like get water? Like, none of us are prepared for that. And you guys we need to be realistic. And it was just, he's a fantastic speaker. And I think his lyricism is secondary to it. Almost.
I don't look, he's a fantastic speaker, but that's exactly what I did when when COVID hit, when like George Floyd, I was on tour in the US and I was like, fuck this. And I moved out to the country. I found a piece of land that I could pay $40,000 for and have a house and start. And there's a well here and there's a river nearby in case, shit goes sideways. And like, we do need to start societies outside of the inner city because there's nothing for us in the inner city anymore. There's nothing for us but us being socially predatory. Or social predators, like just eating each other, and trying to get cash, like not understanding that cash is all the things, not and like it's like Scroobius Pip, he said, or Dan Lissac versus Scroobius Pip. He was like, guns, bitches, and bling were never part of the four elements and never will be. And these inner city anthems about these rappers just telling lies on the mic because it's fantasy. It's what they're fantasizing. And when I became a rapper, when I took the mic and I started flowing and I realized what other rappers in the room were flowing about, I'm like, we're just fantasizing. We're writers. We're just fantasizing about what we want. If we were talking about what was really going on, like I woke up, I put some Cheerios in the bowl, I put some milk on the Cheerios, then I took a big dump. Like, that's not what we're rapping about. We're not rapping about reality. We're rapping about fantasies. And like, if we get real about it, yes, we do need to go out and we do need to start digging wells and we do need to start building fringe communities in places like I'm in Canada where there isn't so much pressure from the inner city because I've lived in both and I know what it's like. And that inner city pressure, I can't. No, it's crumbling. It's like the degradation goes too fast for the gradation.
So you were at university and you decided to become a writer.
Sorry about my tangent. No. And I have got a lot a lot of love from the celebrities on Twitter. Um, yeah, I invented a style of art called motionism, which is like post-expressionism. When I did this like giant installation in Los Angeles. If you have comments on here, we can put like my website and um, it was embraced. It was embraced by the community. I wrote a bunch of letters because I experienced some serious racism in the workplace before like George Floyd and stuff, and like I went out. I was like, I'm never working for anyone else again, and I went out to be an artist. I went to LA, did this huge installation that wrote a bunch of letters to powerful Black people, and I got some serious love on the other side.
Do you want to talk about the instances where you faced the racism stuff, or do you want to glaze over it? It's up to you.
Well, I think it relates a lot. I'm going to try to glaze over it and face it at the same time.
Okay.
A lot of meme culture. And we don't know who's creating memes because people don't sign memes. We don't know if it's like if I was in psyops in some organization that's trying to keep the people in order so they don't go nuts, like I'd be a memer.
Yeah, right.
I think it's the best way for to get an idea going, especially if you can.
Do you know where the word meme comes from?
I do, but please remind me.
I read about it in a book on religion, and they were talking about memes back in biblical times, and I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is something from 2000. Nope. It's the transfer of knowledge through a book or an image so it can be easily digested for someone else. And that's what it is, which is bizarre that it's been around this long and we are talking about it in the form of those stupid memes.
Well, its idea has come. This is one of those ideas whose time has come. So I won't name names because there was I sued this guy for $500,000. He sued me for I sued him. I'm like, for $20,000. I'm like, you owe me at least severance. And then he went back and sued me for $50,000. And he's like, you jacked some things on the way out of the office. And I sued him for $500,000. I'm like, you're not getting away with this. Because I had all this evidence and text messages. At the end of the day, the CEO that I was working with, he's a Jewish guy. He was probably getting the racist shit and just rolling downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me many, many years to understand what he was going through.
Yeah. And
what we were putting each other through as a result of this as like brothers in arms. And that's a hard lesson to learn. But the racism started when I moved to Texas. The first time I ever experienced racism was I was in Boy Scouts, and I saw this couple, we were on a camping trip. They were out, kids that were just a little bit older than me. They were in we were in a drainage area or something camp related, and I got called a white trash monkey, and I'm like, mixed race. So I'm like, that's weird. And then, people started telling jokes in junior high, I won't repeat them. I don't want them to be on the air. But continually going back into myself and then creating a denial of my own race. And then trying as a repercussion of that, trying to be as white as possible. And then getting the BMW, joining the fraternity, and seeing firsthand, I had a black fraternity brother that I pledged with who almost didn't get in because one of the fraternity guys was like, we're going to let a black guy in here? And I'm like, You guys can't see me. I'm Invisible Black.
Yeah,
If I was a superhero, that would be my name, Invisible Black. Like, I am the white spy.
What's your superpower? I can get into yacht clubs. People see me as white.
The cops don't check my ID.
You want to go golfing on Tuesday? I got a 4:00 tea time.
But I
like looking at you, like I wouldn't have known that you were mixed at all. Like, so it's
Black people know right away.
Really?
Wow,
that's crazy.
And when I wasn't aware of this, now it's a power because I get pulled over. They don't ask for my ID anymore.
Jeez.
Like, I'm powerful white guy now to cops.
Do you actually code switch like that? Do you feel yourself doing it?
I don't feel myself doing it. I just do it now. And it started when I was microdosing because like I was hyper aware of every situation that I was in. And as in my persona, I'm dark on it. I'm Black. Like, I'm an African American. So when I got pulled over, that was part of my person. And then I realized that there's some code switching going on, and I would get pulled over. Saying it on, in public, I'd be drunk. I'd be fucked up, and I get pulled over, and the cops like looking at the inside of my car because the inside of my car is painted because I'm a rock star artist, or just an artist, and
you felt the need to throw the rock star in there.
He was like, "Are you like a professional wrestler or something?" I'm like, I'm definitely like I don't say it, but I'm like, I'm definitely white like you, and you don't need to worry about this. These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Right, exactly.
Like, it's crazy. It's so crazy. And so I've definitely developed a distaste for the current state of the police force. I understand that the police force is, yeah, man, I think everybody's in this place right now where we're confused about why we're being policed.
Yeah. I have two of my oldest friends have become police officers, and we don't talk as much as we used to. And I've known them for 20 years now. And it's kind of a mutual thing, where we don't want to even approach it because I've tried to a few times. And it hasn't gone well. They don't understand there's always that sentiment of, well, it's just a few bad apples. And John Oliver made this point, so I can't take credit for it. You have to finish that saying. It's a few bad apples poison the barrel. And that's what my concern is for these guys that I've known for as long as I have, is that there are assholes out there that, and I teach some of these kids that don't have a conscious thought in their brains, but they're like, yeah, I'll just become a police officer because all we require is a high school education. And they grow up and they get consumed by that. It's a fraternity,
Yep. Absolutely.
And they just get that group think going, and then something terrible happens. And they all kind of just, well, because it's institutionalized, they're like, well, you got to know the circumstances. And even with knowing the circumstances, it's still almost impossible to break through to them that part of the reason that I am so focused on this and so passionate about it and where I stand is because I know that you are possibly one of the good ones, despite the fact that you don't see your bias, you don't see your blind
There's no
spots.
such thing, because you're right. It poisoned the barrel.
Yep. I know. You're right. You're absolutely right. But there's still that, I've got that
it's the relationship between them. You know, I've got the nostalgia for how it used to be and all that other stuff. So I know that's part of it too. But so
I'm
I
sure
can't
some
like
of the Germans did with the Nazis too. Like,
right. I know it's
what happened to Derek? Why doesn't Derek come over anymore? He joined this club. We
and I
just don't see you. You know,
made
I
fun
got
of it. I
Jewish
called
friends.
I made fun of his uniform and he didn't like it.
Yeah, he's like, why don't you talk to Hugo? Which that's a weird thing. Why are Hugo Boss and BMW still in business?
Oh my god.
Those guys like
I know. Oh my god.
right.
We should start a weekly or a bi-weekly podcast where we can talk about all these confusing things.
Yeah, we could probably do it. Like Dylan has a morning crypto show. And like this could be a catalyst. Like I want a show that like before it that just talks about art and, you know, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was good stuff and things, you know, the stuff and things show.
That would be a good name. Because obviously, like, but that's kind of why I don't have an art background like you. So, but I'm an English teacher, and I grew up wanting to be a writer around like senior in high school, when I had a creative writing teacher say I was good at it, and I was like a runner-up for poet laureate for the high school kids in my state. And so I've had that in me. And I forget where I was going with this. The podcast. what this is. So like I can talk to like you and the other artists that I have on, but I don't have the ability to talk about like the art history and high art. I don't have that background or knowledge, but there's an overlap in the fact that they're both humanities. And that's all art and writing really is. It's exploring what it is to be a human being. And I think we forget that about English and art in general, or it takes us years to remember it. Or maybe we're just losing it in general because people don't read anymore or want to go to art programs and they're being defunded across the country.
I don't know if I can speak so much on that. I think that doing art is just being brave, and you know we create our path in front of us. Like, you know, I studied like art history for a really long time. I didn't get into it so much in university. Like I took classes, like, you know, a year of art history classes, or did I just show up in the first? I don't even know. Like I've read a bunch of books about it. But like the style that I created was based on the physical principle that everything is constantly in motion. And stillness is absolutely impossible. Like it is unless you're in the depths of a black hole, and even then you're moving really, really slow. Like so it's visual poetry, and then I really liked optical illusions, and I like this concept of creating depth. So when I do oil paintings, like or paintings that'll take a couple of years, you know, I'll do a layer of clear coat, and then I'll paint over that and leave areas of the clear coat, so it's like looking through layers of a window in the depth. Like firsthand, my oil paintings they've become pretty spectacular, and that's why in 2018 I got word that my secondary market in LA had reached like 250,000 per piece, and so I'm charging about $20 square inch now.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it kind of blew my head up. Like my ego got really big for a while. and then I took 8 months being homeless. Not being homeless, just driving around for a while to get some perspective.
Was it that by choice?
Well, so I figured out a way to sell art, which is just go and knock on people's doors. Hey, I'm an artist. I'm selling art, and they buy it. And then I got into prints. I got into digital, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like printing money. This is insane. Like, so I just go to people's doors. I'm like, hey, I got money. You want to trade paper? And, and that was paying the bills.
Wow.
And I had experience in professional sales for a really long time, and so I was applying it to art, and building. I've been building my business like that. Just like to be a sales to be successful in sales or in business, all you gotta do is have a product and be able to sell it.
It's true. There is a lot to art that is sales focused and pitching it, which I don't like, and I'm having trouble accepting the fact that money makes the world go round, and I try to philosophize the money aspect of it. Like, hey, I've got this paper that is valuable. Let's make a trade is how I try to like look at it. It's validation for you as an artist that I give you my paper that I worked for, and it's, you know, allowing you to eat and have a roof over your head so you don't have to sell your soul and go corporate, you know? And that's how I try to look at it, but it still boils down to sales and pitching something to someone, unfortunately.
From what I understood is that like when you're a real artist, like it comes to you, and there's a couple of reasons for this. Is because the validation process of creating the books, which is what the blockchain represents. So now I have a book that like I create a certificate of authenticity, and I stamp that with a number, and I put that number in a book, and I put the same number on the certificate with the painting. So like once something is finished, that's usually when it sells. The same, and I've seen it just happen so magical, just completely magical. When all of my energy channels are clear, so there's no, you know, pile of shit at the door. There's no like, the purest way that I saw it. I was homeless in Toronto for 7 weeks because after graduating, I needed to figure out what money meant to me. And this path led on to currently, like just understanding exactly what money is. And when I was in Toronto, I would finish a drawing of a garment, and I would meet the person that the garment was made for. They would come and talk to me in this fantastic law of attraction, perfectly synchronous environment. There's a convolution that happens when we start 1,000 projects and we don't finish any of them. But once we start finishing projects, they start coming to a head. So the goal is to just finish it. And for me, finishing the garments or finishing the drawings of the design, putting a white line around them. Just outlining it, putting it on a piece of paper, and then putting a white line on it. And later that became cutting it out and using it as a business card. So when I was on set with Carrie Elwes, like my business card for that set was like a space yacht, because any group art project can be summed up in that we're on a ship, we're working together, and we're making the ship move. And there's like what I'm telling you is like I've just seen some things are just nothing short of miraculous in finishing the art project. So if you're working on a novel and you finish that novel, like there's something's going to happen with it.
Yeah, it's the fear of nothing happening with it. You know what I mean? And that's
and
what
bravery.
Yeah.
Bravery is what the reason we're doing it. But how many times have you been so close to getting it and you sabotaged yourself, or something happened right before the end of it that was like, damn it, now it's all ruined? If you can push through on that last part, you're going to be a successful artist or a novelist.
Well, now we've switched roles, and now you're the optimist in this conversation.
I'm a realist. I used to be an idealist, an optimist, and then the world spoke. I let the world speak. Start small, scale up, and then all this shit just sells itself.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's the state of a perfect market, and I hope that as people were moving towards something similar to that, if we can spread this sort of information.
I hope so. Finish your shit.
Finish your shit before you wipe your ass, and you get to clean up.
I'd like to thank my guests for taking the time to speak with me. And if you liked what you heard, like, subscribe, and share it. Thanks for listening.